What is up, guys? Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to build an awesome gaming PC build for 1080p and 1440p gaming. A system that's going to be great now and into the future and features some PC components that offer up a great value between performance and value for money. I'll be walking you guys through how you can try and navigate the current craziness with memory and SSD pricing and shortages, talking about the kind of hardware you'll want for a build like this, and assembling the system today inside of a brand new case that I actually think could be very, very promising for budget-oriented builds. As always, I'll be showing you guys how to put this system together, looking at the kind of performance it offers up later, and just generally having a lot of fun along the way. After, of course, a quick word from today's video sponsor. The GeekaPC configurator is here. If you're in the UK and looking for a pre-built gaming PC, why not consider my PC building company, GeekaPC. Our new configurator allows you to build a truly bespoke system to suit your exact needs. With a wide range of part choices available, there's loads of options. It's simple to use, guarantees part compatibility, and even allows you to build around a specific colour scheme. Import one of our popular pre-built gaming PCs as a starting point, or even choose from our fan packages, which take the hard work out of figuring out what fan sizes, blade orientation, and controllers you need to buy. Check it out at the first link in the description below. Now, I'm going to kick things off today by diving straight into the GPU choice first and foremost, because the graphics card has and will always be the most important part of any gaming PC build. And this right here is the AMD Radeon RX 9060 XT 16GB. Now, when it comes to budget-oriented GPUs, you've got a few options. You've got NVIDIA's RTX 5060 and 5060 Ti, or for AMD, the 9060 XT series. The next jump up from this card would be something like a 9070 GR, but we all saw how the launch for that went, and honestly, this will surprise you in how good its performance is. Compared to an RTX 5060, you see quite a big performance increase, while compared to the 5060 Ti, it's a card that in my opinion offers up better value for money. A few examples of this would be in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle at 1080p high settings. Here we see an average from the 9060 XT of around 9 FPS more. In Apex Legends at the higher 1440p resolution, we see an average frame rate from the 9060 XT of slightly less than the 5060 Ti, but only by around 16 FPS or less than 5%, while dropping back down to 1080p in Cyberpunk 2077 sees the 5060 Ti and 9060 XT 16GB virtually tied at 132 frames per second. Finally, in Cyberpunk at the 1440p resolution, we once again see the cards very closely matched, 90.9 FPS from the 5060 Ti compared to 88.1 from the 9060 XT, perhaps indicating at 1080 and 1440p a bit of a CPU bottleneck in Cyberpunk. You can actually compare this GPU to any other graphics card on the market using my GPU comparison tool at GeekaWhat.com. I'll link it down below. You can basically select all the cards you want to compare, the games you want to compare those cards in, and even pick the resolution for good measure. Now, this ASUS TUF model is a very nice looking 9060 XT, and if I'm being totally honest with you, probably a little bit higher end than we actually need. But let's have a closer look, because I think it's going to work really well in the build today from an aesthetic standpoint. Yeah, look at that. So you see we've got that nice 3-fan ASUS TUF cooler, gorgeous. On the back, we've got ourselves a backplate, which is... that's metal, which is high end for what is essentially a more budget-oriented GPU. And from the front, I think the card looks really rather nice. You could drop down to a Prime or to a Dual, or honestly, any 16GB 9060 XT, and I'll leave latest pricing and availability for that in the description down below. The memory's fallen over, which maybe is a good prompt for us to talk about RAM. The ongoing Ramageddon, the ongoing RAM crisis. James, what should I do about memory? Now, currently, the memory shortage is being caused by two words. AI. Or two letters that stands for... Anyway, the point is, memory prices have never been higher. Not in my 10 years of building PCs here on the GeekaWhat YouTube channel. My PC building business, GeekaPC, it is a nightmare. We just can't get around the fact it's incredibly expensive. I've gone for a 32GB DDR5 kit, but my advice is as follows. If you've already got a DDR5 kit in your current build, let's say maybe you've only got 16 gigs or the speeds and latencies aren't that great, honestly, keep it. You can upgrade this later when prices do inevitably fall, because spoiler alert, they will inevitably fall, and I would expect in a big way. How far away that is something we can't really judge. If you don't have DDR5 memory and you need to pick some up, either go for the cheapest 32 gig reputable kit you can find, or, and this might be controversial, drop down to 16 gigabytes.
But James, then I won't have dual channel and I'll have 16 gigs less RAM and I'll have the same VRAM as DRAM and then my build will be a failure.
No, honestly, I did some testing on this a little while back, comparing 16 and 32 gigs, and on a build of this caliber, it makes no difference. When I say it makes a difference, but a very small difference. And for gaming in particular, it would really surprise you. So go for one DIMM, a decent DIMM, because then you can just buy the same DIMM later when prices do eventually fall and add it in. It's not ideal. I'm not on board with this situation, but that's the world we live in. Now, should we be more positive and talk about storage? This is interesting actually, because this right here is the BIWiN NV7400, and it's currently, in my opinion, the best value 1 terabyte drive on the market right now. It's Gen 4, they're widely available on Amazon, they're cheaper than basically all of the comparative options, and in our testing, it stacks up really well. Gen 4 speeds are great, endurance figures are great, and the pricing, considering where the rest of the market is also pretty great. Let's do the processor next, shall we? We've got an AMD Ryzen 5 9600X for today's build. Honestly, you guys probably get bored of me talking about the Ryzen 5 CPUs because we use them, well, in basically everything. A lot of the testing on this shows that in a build of this price point, spending more than, what, £200 or dollars on your CPU is not the smart way to spend your money. Yes, an X3D chip would be really good, but honestly, this is my preference. I am going to start putting this thing together as well in a moment. I'm going to leave talking about the case and the fans and the power supply till later, but of course, to actually assemble this system, we need something to assemble it onto, and that is where this comes in, the ASUS B850 plus Wi-Fi. Now this right here is one of ASUS's more affordable motherboards on the B850 chipset, and honestly, it's going to be absolutely perfect for what we want. It's got built-in motherboard Wi-Fi, which if you've watched the channel for a little while, you'll know I think is incredibly important, and the Wi-Fi on this particular board, where is it? It is Wi-Fi 7, which is great. I/O is really good on here as well. We don't have like optical audio, but we do have 2.5 gig Ethernet and a good array of high-speed USB ports. A little bit light on USB-C, just the one rear panel port down here, but we do have front panel USB-C, which our case includes, so we do get a couple more options. It is a bit more basic. I'll give you a great example of that. This M.2 drive slot right here is not toolless, and ASUS, if you happen to be watching, in my opinion, it really should be. But if that's my only gripe and complaint about this board, then I think the board's doing pretty well. It also really matches the design language, as you can see, of our GPU. I mean, look how nicely those two match. That is a real good fit. Installing the Ryzen CPU into this motherboard is pretty easy. Simply, my camera going to focus, there we go. Locate the little golden triangle on the CPU and align this with the triangle on the motherboard socket. It's usually in the top left, and you can see on this particular board, that is indeed the case. It's then a simple case of pushing down the arm, pulling the arm up like so. That is then going to free the CPU socket, and once the CPU socket has been freed, we can drop the chip in, a little something like this. Drop down the socket cover, return the arm into place, and the black plastic will pop off nice and easily. RAM or memory is going to be next. Installing this is pretty simple. You just need to locate the little notch on the RAM DIMM itself. That is actually slightly off-center despite what it might look like. And then we'll be using the grey slots today. If you've gone the 16 gigabyte route, you'll only be using this second slot just here, and that's you done. If you've gone for the 32 gig option with 2 individual DIMMs, it's the 4th slot as well, so the slot on the end. Technically, they're labeled 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's slots 1 and 3, but it's the 2nd and the 4th slots. With that sorted, the next step is the M.2 drive. And for this, you'll need to ditch your full-size screwdriver, and you'll need to find yourselves a teeny tiny screwdriver. Long-time viewers of the channel will know that reference. Right, so that's going to be one of our screws, then the second, and then drive time. Now, how do we open this? In terms of drive installation, you see here we've got a little cutout for where the screw is going to go to hold it in, and then we've got our gold contact strip on this side. The gold contact strip is going to slide into the M.2 slot. Then, actually, the retention of the drive itself is toolless, so that's a good thing. It just turns out it's the heat sink, which is not. Good. We are all pretty much in. I realized I didn't talk to you all earlier about the CPU cooler that I've chosen for today's build. This right here is the Thermalright Thermalright premium CPU air cooler. It's their Assassin Spirit 120 Evo. This is also available on the Geeka PC configurator. So if you're based in the UK and you want to buy a pre-built gaming PC or just test different configs, check it out in the description below. It's got loads of choices, loads of options, and supports all the parts in today's build. It's quite cool too. Once you've actually built the system, it has a little share code, so you can keep that code for later, share it with a friend, and they can roast your build. Or I can roast your build. Lots of options. We have got inside of the box our simple black Thermalright air cooler. Look at that, it looks quite nice, right? It's very simple, it's just a black heatsink with a black top plate. The fins themselves are black as well, as are the heat pipes, which is nice. And then we've got a 120mm RGB fan. It does have little rubber dampeners and stuff on, but fundamentally, it is cheap. That's the thing with Thermalright, they are all about value. And again, not an ad, we bought this off Amazon as well, so I'll leave it linked down below. In terms of how we actually go about installing this, I feel like I should read the instructions, but equally I've installed plenty of CPU coolers in my time and probably think I can give this a go. Now, what you'll find in the box are some brackets. These are brackets. These are going to replace the stock mounting brackets that come included. And what we're then going to do is use these red screws or stoppers that come in the box. There we go. And what they're going to do is provide a bit of a spacer between the screw threads on the motherboard's built-in backplate and our new brackets. Anyone fed up of the word brackets yet? Go ahead and secure the brackets down, and then the CPU cooler screws on top nice and easily. Now, with the motherboard assembly all sorted, it's time to talk about this, the case. Now, I was doing a bit of research for this build and thinking, what case can I get for, say, between 60 and 80 pounds or dollars that's going to fit the bill? And I stumbled across this from a brand you might not have heard of in a little while, AeroCool. That's right, the budget case brand that we used to use on the channel all the time seems to have made a bit of a comeback. Now, this is really, really nice because it's got this tempered glass panel with this sort of bit of a curve on it, which I like. The front panel itself is fully rounded. Nice. You get three 120mm reverse blade intake fans pre-mounted on the side, and these are actually from APNX, which I think is like a sister brand to AeroCool, but a bit more premium. You get a 120mm reverse fan in the rear. Corsair, if you're listening, Corsair seem to be allergic, by the way, to adding in reverse fans in all their cases. This has that sorted. We've got this nice little air scoop, which allows our three 120s without too much case height. Room for another two reverse intake fans here above the power supply. Built-in GPU support bracket, and then if we flick the case around to the rear, we have ourselves a fully toolless rear panel, and of course the back of those three intake fans, which are all RGB and pre-wired up to these ARGB splitters. Cable management options are good too, with Velcro cable ties here and here, and these nice little plastic cable clips down the side. Power supply support looks pretty good, and honestly, I just think this thing looks really nice for the money. Like, really, really nice. Like, kind of too nice. So yeah. Oh, there's even like a little cutout at the bottom here. I'll get some B-roll of it for your fan cable. How considerate is that? Yeah, I mean, it just feels good. At the top, we've got, again, it's a bit plastic fantastic, but it's a budget case. We've got a built-in dust filter on the top, which is nice to see, and room for up to 360mm radiators. I'm not going to be putting a 360mm rad in this case, but I am going to put some fans up there to fill it out and to help with airflow. So yeah, what do you think? I actually really like it. The next step then is moving the completed motherboard assembly into the case. If you check out the rear of the motherboard, there's 9 screw holes in total. They correspond perfectly with the 9 screw holes, or the 9 standoffs, sorry, I should say, in the case. These are all pre-installed and the center one is raised. What that means is that when I go ahead and slide the motherboard in, getting the rear I/O shield through first and being careful of any fan cables, what will happen is that the motherboard will actually hold into place. So yeah, I mean, you've still got to screw it in, don't get me wrong. And all the screws you need come included in the case accessory bag we just removed from the rear of the motherboard tray. With the motherboard in, the next step is going to be fans. I've got these APNX fans to match. These are the FP1-Qs, and they're going to go at the top of the case to provide some extra active exhaust. Now, I think the next stage of the build is probably to do all of the cabling and the wiring. And I've just realized I can also return our top cover back into place, as all of those fans are, of course, now installed. Now, in terms of the cabling and the wiring, I'm going to add the power supply in and also do the front panel cables, and I will be walking you guys through exactly how to do this step by step. Before then, I want to talk briefly about the power supply choice in today's system. And this right here is the Corsair RM650e. It's part of their latest RME lineup of power supplies, which I'm a big fan of. Platinum for efficiency and A++ for noise based on cybernetics testing. Interestingly, I don't think there's any 80+ testing on here, which is absolutely fine. And inside, we've got the power supply itself, the exact same sort of size and form factor as its 750 watt bigger brother. And what you can see, which is nice, is we do get the 12 volt high power connection. Now, as it transpires, we won't be using that for today's build. Why? Because we've got an AMD GPU that doesn't use that standard. However, it's still nice to have for things like future upgrades. I've said this loads of times on the channel, but I love the cables on these power supplies. I think they feel really premium for what is a more budget-oriented unit. Now, in terms of which cables we need, first up, we're going to need to grab ourselves one of these large motherboard power cables. I'm going to then follow that up with one of these, a CPU power cable. So you can see here that's labeled CPU. There's two ends on one side for the motherboard and one for the power supply. We're going to need to grab ourselves a graphics card power connector. So I think in today's build, that is this cable right here. While it could also be beneficial to add one of these in, a little SATA power cable for any RGB or fan hubs down the line. And with the power supply in, I'm going to guide you through all the cabling and wiring, starting off with those power cables, which begins with the CPU power up to the top left, the largest motherboard power cable to the right hand side. GPU power is going to wait until later, while front panel cables begin with the JFP1 to the bottom right, HD audio to the bottom left, followed by our USB 3 Type A. It's notched and only goes in one way round, and our smaller USB 3 Type C, which is also notched and also goes in one way round on the right hand side of the motherboard. With that all done and dusted, the next step is to go ahead and pop the GPU in, and it's actually the final stage of the build today, and I'm pretty excited. We're going to be installing it into the top slot on the motherboard, which in this particular case is the second and third PCI slot covers, a little something like so. Now all I'm going to do is just go ahead and unscrew the retention screw on the PCI lane itself. Keep the screw safe, as we'll be using this to actually fasten the GPU back in just a moment, and then repeat this for the second PCI lane as well. Now with that all sorted, I'm then going to go ahead and slide the graphics card into place. It should affix nice and easily. Yes, it has. And that looks, I'm just looking at my monitor there, that looks pretty good if you ask me. Yes. Now I'm going to put one screw in loosely because I'd like to try and get this GPU support bracket positioned before securing the rest of the card down. Aha, here we go. Neat. You know what? I actually quite like that GPU support bracket. It's discreet, it's pretty hidden, but it's definitely practical. And it feels to me like it's going to be pretty sturdy. All I then need to do is go ahead and get through one of our PCI connectors. So that is going to feed through at the front. There we go. And I'm going to wire that up to the graphics card. A little something like so. And with that, we are done. Give me a few minutes to get this thing cable managed and wired up and check the wiring is all good, and then I'll be booting it up to check out performance. But first, how good it looks when it's all powered up in the only way we know how. It's montage time.
Like I remember you.
Considering this is a more affordable gaming PC, if we can call it that in the current climate, it looks fantastic, but what about performance? Now, we tested across the board at 1080p and 1440p on the high settings preset, and let's start off, shall we, with the higher 1440p resolution first of all. In Forza Horizon 6 at 1440p high, we see an average frame rate of 147 FPS. The visuals and graphics look brilliant, and here you've got headroom potentially to push to 4K, or even to turn on things like ray tracing to give you a better visual experience and lose a little bit of frame rate. In Battlefield 6 at 1440p high, we also see a great result. Here, with everything cranked right up, we got an average frame rate of over 91 frames per second. The final 1440p test was in Crimson Desert, a game that typically prefers AMD, but also our weakest frame rate performance of all the benchmarks today. At 1440p high, we saw just 62 FPS. Now that's not bad in the sense that it passes the all-important 60 FPS marker, but it is a game that you may want to drop down to 1080p instead. Talking of 1080p gaming, in 007 First Light, we saw an average frame rate at 1080p high settings of 78 frames per second. Cyberpunk pushed this further to around 109 FPS when tested in the in-game benchmark mode. And finally, Arc Raiders at 1080p high gave us the strongest frame rate of all, with 156 frames per second. All in all, this is a build that provides solid gaming performance. Drop down to the 8GB 9060 XT if you need to, especially if 1440p is less of a focus. And try to spend the money in your build wisely on components like this AeroCool P500A case, which trim out costs to leave a little more money to swallow the increases when it comes to things like memory and graphics. Ultimately, now is not a great value time to build a gaming PC, but I hope this build guide demonstrates that if you are trying to assemble something that won't break the bank, there are still options, even if you have to make compromises.